What's up guys, this is E-House from Gun Gamers, and today I am bringing you my thoughts on the PTS EPM1, the new high capacity, mid capacity, non-winding magazine. If you haven't heard of this, what this is a non-winding type mid capacity magazine that carries exactly, I actually poured all the BBs out and counted them one by one, 252 BBs fully loaded. So if you've had the EPM or any of the other more traditional mid-cap magazines, you might be thinking, wow, that's a pretty crazy capacity increase, but how does it work? Is it any good? Is it worth it? And will it work in my gun? And I'm here to hopefully answer as many of those questions as I can. So to start with, full disclosure, I was sent these by PTS for the purpose of testing, evaluation, and review. And I was sent these pre-release. I've been using them for a good long while. I've used them at several games, and in between a couple of the games, I left them loaded for over a month. If you remember my mid-cap testing video, one of the tests that really killed a lot of those magazines was leaving them loaded for a couple of weeks. So naturally, when these were sent to me by PTS, I was like, well, you know, the PTS mags did pretty well with the 2 weeks loaded test previously. Let's do a month. So I left these loaded for a month, and I then took them out again into the field and noticed no observable detriment to their function. Now, I didn't have access to a super high rate of fire HPA gun to test it as I did previously, but I did do a full auto dump with my classic Army M4, which at the time it shredded its MOSFET doing this, but at the time it was running about 22 to 25 rounds per second, depending on battery and conditions and all that. And it kept up just fine. So my opinion on the spring pressure of these, obviously, is that it's pretty damn high. That's also an opinion that I came to from the fact that if you have a gun that is at all prone to mid-cap syndrome, this magazine will bring that out of your gun. So if your nozzle timing is the slightest bit off, or if your nozzle is just the slightest bit knocked out of alignment by BBs in a mag, this is going to be the magazine that causes that to happen. This spring is insane. I haven't actually taken this magazine apart to look, but I anticipate that this will easily be the longest spring in any mid-capacity magazine. I mean, not just for the capacity, but for the stiffness of the spring. It feeds every single BB every single time and doesn't slow down toward the end. It is a crazy magazine. Now, this is a collaborative design effort between Jordan from Odin Innovations, you have the M12 Sidewinder Speedloader fame, and PTS of the EPM and other various magazines and accessories fame. And the fact that they were able to put the EPM1 in basically the same footprint as a normal PTS EPM is insane to me. Because this is just over 102 rounds more than the EPM's capacity. So this is a 252 round magazine. But above the capacity, I think my favorite features of it are some of the attention to detail and some of the little things that I really wish a lot of other magazines did. One of the things I really like about this magazine, other than the capacity, is the fuel gauge. In my opinion, the fuel gauge is easily this magazine's best feature above and beyond the capacity. The reason I like the fuel gauge so much is because with a lot of other Airsoft magazines, if you've ever used them, you never really know how full your magazine is, unless you have like a smoke-colored or translucent magazine. This tells you in no uncertain terms, relatively, how far down you are in your magazine capacity. And I've found it to be decently accurate. Now, there have been times where the fuel gauge has been all the way at the bottom, but I've still had, 10 to 20 shots. But that spring is still almost entirely decompressed, and having the fuel gauge at the bottom is still a good indicator of, hey, you're at like less than 10% total capacity. So I think that that's fair enough. Otherwise, I've found it to be pretty accurate. And I really enjoy that, because being able to actually look at your magazines during the middle of a firefight or gunfight, however the hell you want to call an airsoft engagement, BB LARP game, being able to look down at your magazines and know relatively how much ammo you have is super useful, and I really enjoy that. The only other way I was ever really able to do that was with the loaded indicator on the EPM, which obviously is no longer orange the second you pull the trigger a few times. Or then there's the window here, but you have to take the magazine out, look in the window, and you know, oh, well, I see spring in this window and no BBs, so that means I've got down to here and here possibly of ammo. It is a much more accurate gauge that lets you know, yes, I have roughly half a magazine, roughly a quarter of a magazine, or I'm coming right up on empty, or I am empty. So I really enjoy that feature. That is actually my favorite thing about this magazine, bar none. My other favorite thing about this magazine is the follower. Now, follower shapes in airsoft magazines affect a lot about the function of your magazine. And this is something that I found really during my Midcap test, was that magazines that did better tended to have a better follower. And one of the follower shapes that I never really liked was actually the teardrop shaped follower that comes in the old EPMs. Now, the newer generation old gen EPMs, the newer manufacturer old generation EPMs have a better teardrop follower than a lot of the others, but it's still a two-piece follower. It's still that teardrop shape, and what I don't like about it is that sometimes you'll get a BB that jams in on the side of that follower, and the follower deforms just enough to get stuck. So this will be your follower, this will be your BB, and that is just going to jam up in the channel of your magazine. And that's the most famous magazine malfunction I think anyone can have. That's when you see people take their mag out and whack it against something, because they just want to dislodge that BB and that follower. The follower shape on this magazine, in my opinion, is far superior. It actually cups the first BB that you load in, and what that does is it staggers the BBs in a different way so that the follower can't possibly jam it up. And that is so much better. It's avoiding a lot of potential malfunctions. And then really the only thing that can cause a malfunction in your magazine is like a total deformation of the follower, a total deformation of a BB, or having too much dirt and shit in there. And I am really glad that they went with this new style of follower. I am enjoying it very much, and I think it does a great job. I've never had a side-by-side, that's what I'm going to call it, a side-by-side jam in a magazine with a follower like this, unless it was like a really shitty, cheap magazine and the BBs themselves jammed. So I'm optimistic, based on my use of this, that this is going to be a very good magazine for preventing jams and for reliability, if nothing else, because of the immense spring pressure that can help clear anything out too. So you might not be surprised to know, based on everything I've said, that I've had no malfunctions, no misfeeds, and no skips with these magazines of any kind. I've used them in a wide variety of guns, from Maple Armories to Classic Army to Crytac to G&P to E&C, even, to everything I've been able to get my hands on to test this. And I've found that generally the compatibility is about the same as the original EPM. Not surprising, they probably recycled the dimensions between the two, but that's good to know. If the original EPM worked in your gun, it'll probably work with the EPM1. With the one caveat, of course, of the massive spring tension that can really bring out any gun prone to midcap syndrome. Now, that's technically a failure on your gun's part and not the magazine's part, but if you are shopping for this magazine and you know that your gun has that tendency, that can be a con for whether or not you want to buy this magazine. So figured I should bring it up. Now let's talk about some of the things that are different between the original EPM and the EPM1. These guts are not compatible. The way that these magazines are actually attached inside the shell is just different. So they don't fit. You can't buy the EPM1 guts and put them in the EPM. Doesn't fit, doesn't work. Conversely, you won't be able to put EPM guts into an EPM1. I don't know why you would do that, but it's not an option. The base plate is also different. They are not cross-compatible. Obviously, the EPMs were compatible with real Ranger plates. These are not. These are a proprietary base plate. So that can be a pro or a con. Personally, I don't really care. You can notice I've never swapped the base plates on my EPMs, and I don't know why I would swap these. The texturing and the texture pattern is different on the EPM1 versus the EPM, and I like the EPM1's version better. The texture on the EPM was very subtle, kind of soft, almost like a low texture. This is much more like checkering and notching. And that really grabs your hand better. Now, if you have very, very, very delicate hands, maybe you'll find this unpleasant, but I can't imagine that because it's still not overly aggressive. It doesn't feel like sandpaper. It just feels like good checkering. Like if you've ever felt a well-checkered rifle stock or something like that, it feels a lot like that. And I really like it. I think that this is a better iteration of the texturing. I think you get a very good grip on the magazine. The one thing I wish is that the checkering on the little index point here was more aggressive, but honestly, at that point, you're kind of splitting hairs. You're still getting that little bit of a nub, so when you're taking it out of a magazine pouch, it's still pretty easy, still indexes well. Like I said, I just wish this was like a millimeter or so deeper, so it was just a little sharper and more aggressive, but you still get the overall effect of having that step there and that ramp that your finger can easily grab onto. So that's not bad. And the rest of the checkering is a definite improvement and a definite step up. The base plate is also not rubberized anymore. That is actually one kind of moderate disappointment of mine. I kind of liked the rubberized texture on the base plate. It kind of mitigated some of the impact, but I've been tossing these magazines around a little bit and I have yet to break them, so I anticipate the durability isn't going to be an issue, especially if, you know, my stupid ass is using them and I've managed not to break them. So I've been rambling on for a long time about one particular magazine, and I think you can get the gist of my thoughts. Overall, I really like the EPM1. I think it's a really good magazine. It works great for me. I've had no problems with it, and it does exactly what it says it's going to do. It holds 252 BBs, it's got a fuel gauge, it doesn't jam, it feeds well. It's a good magazine. It's expensive. It's a $30 magazine. Now, it is a very expensive magazine, but if you really want this feature set, that does come at a premium. Will I personally be going out to replace every one of my original EPMs with the EPM1? No, only because my EPMs still work excellently and they're really good magazines. But will I absolutely be using the two EPM1s that I got sent, and will I be buying more eventually once things stabilize and once life is no longer crazy? Yeah, I'll probably buy 2 more of those so that way I can just have a 3+1 setup for open plays that gives me 1,000 BBs. That's kind of where I see the niche of this magazine especially, is just for lightweight kits where you still don't really sacrifice much in the way of ammo. I really like the idea of just being able to rock 3+1 and have as much ammo as if I was rocking, you know, 5 or 6 normal EPMs. I think that that's pretty awesome. What I would love to see is an extended version of this, and I've already bugged the PTS owners group about this, and if you want to see this too, leave a comment down below. I want to see a PMag 40 size version of this. Now obviously it can't look like a PMag 40, but I want to see that extended 40 round size of this that holds like 300 or 350 BBs or something like that, because that would be hilarious to me. Having a 300 round non-winding mag that I could run and just use like one of those for your average 10 to 15 minute open play would be fantastic. I think that would be really cool. I want them to make it. I'd pay like $50 for it. I don't give a shit. So if you want that too, leave a comment down below. If you have any other questions or you have anything else that you want to know about this magazine, leave a comment. I'll do my best to try to get back to as many of them as possible. If you have your own thoughts on this magazine and you've had your own experiences with it, maybe they're the same or different than mine, leave those in the comments as well. Agreement, disagreement, discourse, telling me I'm stupid and ugly and fat and horrible, all of those are welcome and encouraged. So, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was helpful if you were looking at this magazine, and I hope you are all staying safe and sane during the current craziness going on with COVID-19. I wish you all the best, and this is Z-House from Gun Gamers, signing off. Peace.
Thank you for watching this video from Gun Gamers. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. Check the description below if you'd like to buy a t-shirt or a patch, and use the coupon code JUDY10 for 10% off of your next order at Amped Airsoft. Thank you again for watching, and praise Judy.